I'm Alexis Garcia, and it's my third year moderating something like Key Biscayne Film Festival. So excited to be back and see this community growing and embracing this festival and everything that comes with it. And then we have a special guest who is Carlos Hernandez, an actual living, working comedian with anxiety.
Living comedian, correct, that is right, yeah. And an actual living, breathing comedian with anxiety.
Just in case it wasn't clear that that was a documentary, now you have one here.
I can attest that it's all real and it's
you
all
can
true.
hear talking to and touch and feel after the
Correct.
Q&A.
I know, yeah. Please don't touch. But depends. Anyway, yeah.
So there's a lot of places we can start. I think first I want to start just getting it, because I was excited to add Carlos in order to make those jokes and also to contextualize like the world that you're seeing and the kind of person you're seeing, because I think as we'll hear from Wendy, it's like not necessarily how you intended to make the movie when you decided to make something about anxiety, but found that there was this community and profession that has, you know, this shared very relatable thing that they're dealing with. But in this crowd, how many of those comedians were you guys familiar with? Is there anybody that was familiar with most of them?
Pretty much all.
Okay, so only a couple people that were familiar. Anybody that knew none of them?
One of them.
You know, one?
Who did you know?
One or less?
Mark Maron.
Yeah. So that was the other reason, because I think, and again, we'll get this story, but like me being somebody who, he's obviously fully in the world, knows all of them, some of them personally, and have worked with them, and I'm very much, you know, involved in the world in terms of filmmaking and working with comedians in film, and so like that is an incredible array of comedians that you have. This is not just random comedians; these are some of the best comedians that are working in the space. So for starters, what was the origin of turning this into something that focused on comedians, and then how did you end up with all these people?
Well, yeah, so it started out as going to be regular people with anxiety, and during the casting process and the research process, started looking into comedians. My husband is very into comedy, and he started sending me people who he was following on social media who had anxiety, and I then took a deep dive and found that there were a lot of comedians who not only had anxiety, but they were doing material about their mental health in their stand-up or their sketch videos, and it was just very compelling, and it just became clear that it was a better way to tell the story, to use comedy to talk about a serious subject, to make it more accessible and entertaining.
And when you say he found people, presumably that was people who were, it was their bits that had anxiety related.
Exactly.
Was that Joe List that was at the beginning?
Well, no, it was actually Aparna and Shirley was the first one, because she was this was back, I started this back in 2017, and at the time she was on Twitter and she was posting a lot of tweets about her mental health, and so she was the first person that I reached out to, and I just got in touch with her on her website. I just reached out. She had no idea that she was the only comedian at the time. She agreed to an interview. And then when I was interviewing her, after that interview, that was at a comedy club, and then I asked the people at the comedy club, who else should I talk to? And they said, oh, you got to talk to Joe List. He's super anxious. And so I reached out to Joe, and he was like, sure. And then when I was, researching or looking more into Joe, I found Mark Normand, who at the time, he is crazy popular now. At the time, he was popular, but I went up to him after, at a comedy club in New York, after he did a set, and I told him what I was doing, and I said, oh yeah, we're going to be interviewing your friend Joe and Aparna, and he was like, okay, sure, and so he said yes. So it was, I was, not as hard as you would imagine, and they've really blown up a lot of these comedians. Ava Victor has her own movie now, Sorry Baby, that is just winning all sorts of awards and she was nominated for a Golden Globe, and she's in the movie, so it's worked out.
Yeah, that was quite a surprise, because I was less familiar with her in the comedy context, but had heard so much about her. I haven't seen Sorry Baby yet, but I'd heard so much about her this year from other people praising Sorry Baby. and from, who was it at the Golden Globes?
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts drunkenly calling her out at the Golden Globes, like giving her like her flowers, right?
Yeah, you
As a
gotta
kid
see
say.
this movie. I'm a big fan. You have to see her movie. That was amazing.
Yeah, so part of that was timing, right? You worked on this a long time, but didn't mean that all those comedians would have the same rise. You know, that whole space has had a big rise. Now it sounds really coming out of COVID. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you were shooting this heading into COVID. How did,
Yes.
was that relevant in what you in your work?
I mean, you know, so all but Tiffany was filmed before COVID. And I would say that we, you know, during COVID, we had no idea how big of a role COVID was going to play in this film. So I did a couple of Zoom interviews with people, some of the comedians during COVID, but, you know, thank goodness it didn't have to play a big part. So no, it really didn't. Tiffany, the main character, we filmed her after. And yeah, so you would think that it would have played a big role, but it didn't.
I want to come back definitely to talk about how you
Yeah.
got her to do what she
Yeah.
did in the movie, which is extraordinary in terms of the access and vulnerability that she showed. But first, this is, you were telling me before, this is your 33rd film festival?
This is our 33rd film festival in the past year, a little over a year. And yeah, we got 7 more in the calendar. It's been wonderful, and it's just amazing to be able to show the film, you know, to audiences like this who are here to, you know, who love film and who appreciate it. So it's been great.
And so that we don't forget to talk about this, so you can then go out and tell your friends about the movie. Right now, where's it available?
Well, right now, it's on a platform called Jolt, J-O-L-T, but it's soon going to be on all the platforms that you've all heard of, like Apple and Amazon and such. That'll be in the spring. And we're also gearing up for an Anxiety Club tour, and we'll be doing some events at comedy clubs and theaters across the country, and that'll also be in the spring. So Anxiety Club movie, you can find everything on our website and social media if you want to know more.
Yeah, and the subjects of your festival, like they do come through here, you know, not as often as other places, but Mark Norman was just here over the holidays at a spot called Comedy Inn that Carlos is very familiar with. Joe List is here next month, March.
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, the Dania Improv.
Yeah.
Fort Lauderdale Improv, now they did a name change. They tried to, yeah.
Okay, that's funnier.
No one knows Dania. It's just what they do now. Yeah.
And so one more, and then I'll turn to Carlos for a minute. But like this festival aside, what were on that kind of tour? What is there a highlight or two from your festival tour that you can share?
Well, besides Key Biscayne, which is wonderful and I'm loving it here.
How many other Ritzes were you put at?
This is the only, this is absolutely by far the best accommodations, I will say that. One of my favorites was actually in Barcelona. It was a mental health festival, and it was all films about the brain. And so that was really fun and interesting and unique. But you know, yeah, we've been like all over the country and you know, different crowds and different experiences at each one. So it's, yeah.
So Carlos,
Alexis.
you said this is relatable.
I mean, yeah, of course.
Elaborate.
Yeah.
Tell us about your experience with seeing the movie.
Yeah, I thought it was, you know, hopefully I would have been in the movie, and my career would be at a rise like these guys are right now, but can't go back in time. We got to make a sequel. But no, honestly, as someone that does comedy and knows a lot of these guys, like I know Mark personally, I work with him all the time in New York, like people that are like going through this consistently. Like I started through improv and then I got into stand-up while also getting involved in acting too. And the whole process of any of that, anybody that does any of that and putting themselves on camera or in front of an audience, you already know the anxiety level you gotta like ignore, basically. You gotta ignore everything that you normally do on a daily basis and just pretend you're out there, just letting everybody know and everybody into who you really are, or at least the version that you're trying to play for whatever project or show you're trying to do. So seeing this explored in such a deeper way and with people that are doing it in some of the higher levels in comedy, I think is incredibly important for, you know, mental health and what we're doing, and for, you know, the state of comedy and just mental health in general that everybody's watching and experiencing all the time. So
Yeah, and certainly one of the things that I found interesting about it is if you took it out of this context of just somebody with anxiety and then said to them, okay, now you're gonna get on a stage
yeah,
and have to perform material that you hope that specific crowd that night is going to laugh at the same way other people, like it would give somebody without anxiety.
I know.
And yet this is a movie about people that have kind of baseline level of anxiety, but when they do this,
It almost like cures it. It like evades it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's another type of medication that we need as comedians for that, but the fact that we're doing the thing that affects us daily the most and doing it in the most, you know, raw of ways, which is getting on stage and doing this basically, but by yourself and hoping that people will laugh and not have their arms crossed like this guy right here. You know, I have anxiety looking at you. You know what I mean? I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to make you laugh, but I want to make something that it makes this guy take his arm out of his armpit. You know what I mean? But that's the level of anxiety that I live in constantly. Just a grown 49-year-old man just trying to get his arms out of his armpits. That's all I want for my life. That's all. That's all we want as comedians. So that will cure our anxiety, I'll promise.
yeah. So in that way, like and I can't remember it certainly felt like you were making this point in the doc, but I don't know if you ever actually specifically made it. The therapy that Tiffany does is a form of what the comedians do by getting on that stage and exposing themselves to that level of fear. Like because she's not a stand-up, right?
No, she's not a stand-up. And I would like to say that it was totally related, but I knew about exposure therapy from an episode I had done years back for a kids news program on Nickelodeon, and it was about teens with anxiety, and most of them either had done exposure therapy or were doing it when I was filming, and even though I struggled with anxiety, I didn't know about exposure therapy, and it just was something that I felt needed to be in the film, and so it's just kind of ironic that it's basically what the comedians are doing when they get on stage.
Yeah, I mean they don't know they're doing it. So,
Yeah.
so you sort of now.
Yeah, now I'm like, come on, that's what I've been doing. And it's just, no. But yeah.
Were you the impetus for her doing the exposure therapy, or?
She was already thinking about she wanted to go back to therapy, and she was thinking about exposure therapy. She had done a sketch about exposure therapy where she played the therapist and the patient. We didn't end up using it in the film, but so it was very much on her mind.
She did that before doing any kind of.
Yes, she had done that before, so she knew about it, and she was thinking about it. And then when we reached out to her, she was. It didn't take any convincing because she is all about talking about mental health, talking about recovery. She's in recovery, and so she was on board. And I mean, I just feel so lucky that she was the person who was in that role because she's so charming, so endearing, so vulnerable, and so funny that it's just, it makes the film.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring up recovery because then there's another thread you can make in the stand-up world, which again, these things all weave, which is the number of stand-ups who have issues with substances or are in recovery. And you connect it back to like, all right, what are they avoiding?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know you're looking at me like that.
We get a refill for Carlos. And so you didn't have to convince her to do it or to have the level of access. Did you have to convince the therapist, or once she was okay, then?
Well, the therapist. Okay, so Tiffany didn't have a therapist and wanted help finding one, but I didn't want to find one for her. So what I did was I vetted a whole bunch of therapists in her area and then gave her the names and some information about them, and then she spoke to some of them and basically, decided who to work with at that point. And it was Natalie, who was really perfect because she happens to be somebody who's very much into comedy, stand-up comedy. She would go to New York a lot. She's in Tampa. She would go to New York a lot and see comedy. And she saw the value in doing this film, so she did not need much convincing either. I think she was, at first she was like, who is this woman contacting me, asking me to do this crazy thing? And so I think after she saw that, I was like, okay, I've done a few things and this was a serious thing. She was on board, and so what we did was we had 3 cameras that were hidden in the room. And when I say hidden, I mean, of course, Natalie and Tiffany knew they were there, but they were not, they couldn't see them, so they were obscured. So as not to be distracting, and the crew and I were in an office next door. So we were monitoring the session from next door, but we were not interrupting them. And I think they really forgot about the camera a lot of the time.
Yeah, whether they actually did or not, like
Yeah.
the intimacy that you have in those
Yeah.
segments is just like
Yeah.
it feels like there's nobody else there, which is awesome. And some of that, I imagine you had experience in that space with other content that you've made.
In terms of therapy or
Well, in terms of like having
Just-
fly on the wall.
Oh,
type of-
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I hadn't done really anything quite like that before, where we had the 3 cameras that were hidden in the room with the therapist. But I filmed a whole lot of things and just knew that we knew the cameraman and I, we just knew that we had to be very sensitive and provide an environment where they would be able to feel as comfortable as possible and lose, and forget about the camera at a certain point, forget that we were filming. So yeah.
That's good. And Carlos is just relieved that you didn't say that you cast the therapist, because then that's another role he did.
Another role I couldn't audition for. Yeah, correct. No, but I can play one pretty well. Yeah.
And in terms of the cooperation, or kind of what was it like to work with the clubs? Because you had quite a, that was most of that, or all of it, you shot that as opposed to something that was just being shot? Yeah.
We filmed a lot of the stand-up. Some of the stand-up we licensed, like Mark Maron, we didn't film that. The Joe List stuff, we filmed a lot of that. It was a combination with Joe. So it was really a combination. We filmed as much as we could, and then we licensed some to fill in, to make sure that we had coverage of everybody.
And the filming you were doing was in New York, the New York comedy scene?
Yeah, it was in New York and LA. We filmed at the Laugh Factory in LA. And we also filmed at the Improv in LA. We filmed Baron doing his set there. And then also we filmed him at this like bizarre taco place that in LA that
I
was
saw that, Best Fish Taco.
the best fish. Yeah. And
It's a great room actually. That's actually
Right?
I've done that room before. It can get packed out pretty well.
I know the spot. I didn't know from when I lived in LA. I didn't know
It's like a little mic here. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
And what about in New York? Where were the clubs?
in New York, we filmed at the Stand, and
Your favorite? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like my home club in New York, so I love it there. Yeah, they're good people there.
Great there. And we filmed at we filmed interviews at the Cellar. We filmed Joe List and Mark Norman's interview at the Cellar. Where else did we do? We filmed at Under St. Mark's was a small club. A couple of other clubs that we didn't end up being able to fit into the film. So. Yeah, I mean, there was one night where we just basically followed Mark Norman around to like 3 different clubs wherever he was going, which is cool. It was really fun. Yeah.
I want to leave time for any questions. If you have any questions, just go ahead and raise them. Oh yeah, go ahead. Oh good. Well, then we'll go right to questions. In the back.
Carlos, what is your next show?
My next show? I have a show on the 23rd of February here in Miami. We're doing a show at Glass and Vine in the Grove, if you want to go. Yeah, we're starting a night there, starting in February. Yeah, I know I'm posting it soon, but you're getting the deal there. Yeah, so I'll see you there hopefully 23rd of
It
February.
was actually something I was gonna bring up, Carlos. For the people, these are all locals. Obviously.
Sure.
What's the scene like? Where can people catch comedy? Where can they catch?
Sure, yeah. In Miami, the scene is constantly growing. I go back and forth between Miami and New York a lot right now. In New York, I perform normally like at the Stand or like other like New York Comedy Club and stuff. But in Miami, there's really just one comedy club, which is the Improv in Doral. But there are a lot of opportunities that are not necessarily comedy clubs for comics to perform and for you guys to watch comedy. The Comedy Inn, it's a small little venue. You guys can look that up. They do monthly shows there. They have incredible comedians.
In
headliners.
Palmetto Bay, right?
That's a Palmetto Bay. It's inside of a Quality Inn. Don't be creeped out. It is cool, but it is one of the best comedy clubs that we have in Miami. There's also that, and then as far as like smaller club scenes, there is bar shows that you guys could attend to, which is great. Also, there's Red Bar in Brickell on Mondays. There's Dom's DC Pizza, which is like a bar on Tuesdays, on Wednesdays. There is a local nightclub or night, I guess you could call it, in this hole in the wall called Thank You Miami in front of like the baseball stadium. That's on Wednesdays and Fridays. Thursdays is the longest showcase that there is in Miami. First place there was ever comedy in Miami at this place called Taurus in the Grove. You guys can check that out. Yeah. And yeah, Saturdays, Sundays, you'll usually probably be able to check out like Fort Lauderdale Improv, Miami Improv. Those are the main clubs that happen. Or Just the Funny, which is an improv theater where I came out of. I started classes there in 2017, did classes there up until the pandemic, did improv and stand-up there. And they have stand-up shows there on Saturdays also. And starting February 23rd at Glass and Vine, and once a month we're gonna have comedy night there. Yeah.
All right, so now no excuses.
What's up? Villain Theater, that's correct, just as well. Villain Theater. Are you a rep for Villain Theater? What is this?
I'm the publicist.
You're the publicist? Necessary to living here. Yeah, 100%. Villain Theater's incredible too. They're one of the longest running improv and stand-up showcases that you guys should go to. They're in Little Haiti. Shout out to them. They're incredible.
And where are you on social if people want to follow you?
Social
You put out content and clips.
100%. CAHRLOS, Carlos with an H in the middle, how like Cubans would pronounce it, Carlos. So CAHRLOS. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff, and follow at Villain Theater so this guy doesn't shoot me at the end of the show.
Other questions?
Anything else? Yeah.
I'm just curious, how do you keep the funding in such a quality of food going for so long?
I worked with friends. It was largely independently funded, and worked with friends who were giving me really good deals, and spent a lot of time doing stuff myself. Not the filming, but a lot of other stuff. So.
I have a weird question. My experience doing stand-up was the opposite of all of the comedians in the film, where I was kind of unstable. I was going through some stuff. I was going through depression and anxiety for about 2 years. I came out of it and I started doing a lot of stand-up, and actually it was making me way more unstable. And I saw, I'm sorry.
That is the actual true story. Now I'm kidding. Yeah, go ahead.
And so I saw it as like, oh, I need to back off from this until I get stable. Not like it's gonna make me better. It was making me worse. And I saw also with the substances, I didn't see it as people who do drugs and want to do comedy. I saw it as, wow, a lot of people are doing cocaine to get up on stage. I saw it as like their drugs are sort of being caused by comedy in a sense. Right? So I was just curious if, like, am I totally the odd man out? Did you run into other people who felt like it was not exposure therapy and it's something it's causing more anxiety?
Oh, yeah, it was a real combination. Aparna Nancherlis, he talked about how nervous she would get before she went on stage and sometimes wouldn't show up because she was so anxious. But also that going and showing up was better for her. Others would go on stage and feel like they were in their element, like Joe List and Mark Normand. Barron said that he would get on stage and he would look around the room and think, oh, that person's gonna hate me, that person's gonna hate me, that person's gonna hate me. So it really was a combination of experiences that the comedians were going through, and you probably have more experience with that.
I think it's the way I see it is, it's like going to the gym. Like you hate going to a gym. The idea of going to a gym haunts you. You're thinking of the people looking around. You're like, you don't want to see people letting you work out. But when you finish working out, then you feel much better after that. This is how I see it. Like, so if you feel anxious and like you can't do it, then at least doing it will give you that checklist that at least someone like I do, that I have a little bit of OCD too. It'll like, okay, I did 3 mics today. I know these jokes work. Now I know that I can do this joke and it's actually worked out. I gotta listen back, and then tomorrow I can fix that joke. I can take some works out. Tomorrow it'll be better. So I know it's part of the process, as opposed to seeing it as something that's like, oh my God, if I get up and they don't like me, well, they're gonna hate me. What am I gonna do? So seeing it as part of a process that you know it's gonna turn out to something better, as opposed to just seeing it as something that's making you more anxious. At least that's how I
And
see it.
sticking with your analogy, steroids might help you
That will, yeah.
work out a lot harder at the gym.
Exactly,
It's sustainable.
exactly. So definitely take Prozac if you want. But that's what that means. But yeah.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.